Messed up the live I scheduled because I didn't select mobile, so I had to create a new one. So hopefully people find me here. But I put out a community post. People are interested in seeing some of the things I've created. So that's what I'm going to do, a little art show and tell. I post a lot of stuff over on the post page just to help me figure out more what people are interested in seeing from me besides the tutorials. So check that out if you get a chance. I ask questions kind of, what people might want to see or be interested in. And some people were interested in seeing some of the artwork that I've created. So I decided to do a little art show and tell. Here's the drawing that you most often see me working on these lives, which I'll continue on at some point in the future. But anyways, I'll get into it, and hello, I'm Eric. Thanks everybody who has subscribed, liked, commented. Really means a lot. I'm relatively new to YouTube and posting and sharing like this. I used to always just share my artwork. So sharing my process, it's been fun to see all the interactions. And as you see here, I really don't have too many drawings. It's mostly paintings, but creating art and paintings like this, the foundation is always in drawing, and then there's just paint over the top. It's not necessarily pencil, but like the sea turtle, you sketch it in, paint over the top. So again, drawing and all those tools that I teach and show are utilized in all these different paintings. And oh yeah, here's some other fun things. These are coloring books that I made that I'll show you in a bit. But first I want to start off by showing, hey Simra, how's it going? First I want to start off by showing sort of the paintings that have gotten me the most attention, which are these four here. There's actually 6 in total. But so these are paintings, and as you've seen on my channel, I focus on nature and wildlife in drawings and paintings. And I've showed some of these on lives previously, but as we get in closer here, and I'm trying to make it so we don't get this reflection here off the windows, but you see this wolf is entirely made up of words. So this series is the series of 6 paintings here: sea turtle, wolf, grizzly bear, and then this is a bee, but it's all about pollinators. And then I have 2 other ones, a bison and a polar bear. This is a small proof that I'll talk about later. But so these 6 paintings are all made up of words, and they tell the story of these different animals, sort of the good, bad, and the ugly of how they've been persecuted in some way or another. And again, with that foundation of drawing, there's little drawings within each of them. And so, again, while my channel is mostly drawing based, a lot of what I do is actually painting and just using drawing to sort of create that foundation of what whatever the painting is. So this series of 6 paintings I was trying to do 1 a year. So like the wolf one, for example, here, took me 11 months. And what that entailed, why it took me so long, is the first 4 or 5 months was all just researching what to include, taking notes on that, breaking it down into categories, and then organizing it onto the wolf's face. So like different sections of the wolf talk about all this different information. I really like the wolf painting. Thanks. Yeah, this wolf one is probably my most well-received painting. It's got the most attention. I've been lucky and fortunate. I've had a few of the paintings been, they've won some awards. I've had a solo show with all 6 paintings. But the wolf one is definitely the one that's been the most recognized and I've sold the most prints of, which again, as I mentioned briefly a second ago, is so with these really big, big projects like this, I have them professionally scanned and then I get proofs printed up and then I sell prints of those. If people want to know more about that, drop a line and I can talk more about that. That in contrast to some smaller projects, like this is just a fun little bird painting. These I don't have scanned or anything. This is just sort of a fun little bird chart. But on these really long-term projects, that's where I want to make sure I didn't just spend all that time and not sort of make it available for people to enjoy and have in their home. And I've been really fortunate on this project because not only have I been able to sell some prints, but print sales on these actually go back, a portion goes back to help protect these different animals. So again, this one is all about the history of grizzly bears. And in the US, 1800s, 1900s, the US had a program to basically eradicate a lot of the predators, specifically the most dramatic case was of wolves, but grizzly bears were also affected by that. And of course, so it tells that story, but then these also then turn to that mind shift where, starting in the 1950s, 60s and beyond, we're starting to protect them. Of course, it's still an ongoing battle. Let me see what. Sir, I also want to make one. How to start? Well, that's a tough question. I mean, if you're looking to sort of mimic this style, I mean, I would pick your favorite animal. And then again, so the wolf, as I mentioned, took me 11 months to make, but I didn't start the writing and painting until month number 5, because those first few months we were all just note-taking and research. So you got to really dedicate yourself. And you could, you're not necessarily you'd have to copy this exactly, but you could do one with larger letters or something like that. Yeah, so that's my most well-known project. And all these paintings are created in that same way. The animals with hair lend themselves sort of they're the easiest to create the effect in because you're essentially using the words for the hair. But again, I also like to put in little drawings down here. So these are historic photos of grizzly bears that I found, what grizzly bear tracks look like, people feeding grizzly bears in Yellowstone. These are photos that I found that are somewhat familiar. And this pollinators one, again, it's not just bees, it's, bats are pollinators, butterflies, moths. So it focuses on all of those different animals. So then, here's one of my favorite drawings I've done. This is of Badlands National Park, and it's similar to the Mount Rainier drawing that you guys have all seen me working on a lot. But this is all done with pencil, similarly to that Mount Rainier drawing. And also, it's pretty much the exact same process if you guys have seen that video or watched any of those lives. I did a grid on this, and it's copying a photo that I took in Badlands National Park in South Dakota. And so these are all the mountain formations down there. And I'm using a lot of the same techniques. Well, obviously these little mountains or the formations take a lot more sort of high level of detail. Like the grass technique, the clouds, these are all the same techniques I use in my tutorials and show in a more condensed way. But yeah, this is, again, this took me several months to complete. But it's all about, just being patient and not rushing yourself. The same as with, again, these paintings where spending, 8, 10, 11 months on one thing. Obviously, all that being said, I don't rely on money as an artist to survive. And for, so when I started this project on these larger paintings, I wanted to, I was doing a lot of photography before that. And so I wanted to start creating artwork that maybe had more value, not monetarily, but in terms of people looking at it and being inspired. So that's what prompted switching from photography more into painting and drawing. Of course, when I was younger, I was always doing a lot of drawing and things like that. But as Instagram and all the social media came up, and everybody had a phone, it's kind of like photography came a little bit saturated to me. Not that makes it less important, but I guess I just wanted to challenge myself a little bit more. So again, I sought trying to create artwork that had more substance to it. But these are all very intense and spending that much time. So I wanted to do smaller projects where I could keep the same idea. And so that's where this is just obviously, a little 8 by 12. If you get into the eye though, I'm telling just a really brief story, a lot more condensed on mountain lions here. Again, mountain lions were another predator that was targeted in the early settlement of the United States. And so I started to do a few of these smaller ones. Bald eagle was another one that was kind of unintentionally their populations were declining. They weren't going out to kill them intentionally, but sort of the way of life, and different chemicals were reducing populations and destroying habitat. And this is a print. So again, the original on this one, on the bald eagle, sold. So these are all prints that I had scanned, and then, people can buy smaller ones like that. Another little bee chart. So similar to that first bird chart, these are all different kinds of bees. Let me see what's written here. Sir, these are all the best painting, but sir, I know it's not just in one day. It takes years of practice. I want to see your old painting that when you first started, every artist has bad paintings. Yeah, I'd have to search for those. I'd have to look for some of those. I think for me, like old paintings, I might have a few. I might have a few somewhere. I'll have to look and see if I can find some. I know I have some old sketches and things like that where I'm testing out the idea. But yeah, you're right. These, it's not like I just started on these. These are just, I wanted to show paintings and work that has, been shown publicly, and, kind of the best examples of what I've created over the years. So then for a while during COVID, I got into making these coloring books. And again, you've probably seen by this point, I have somewhat of a fascination with words and sort of being really informative, maybe to a fault. But so these are coloring books that I created, and these are all hand drawn. These aren't like, I didn't draw them on the computer. These are all drawn by hand with a pencil and pen and then scanned. So this one's all about different animals and what they mean in terms of biodiversity. Sometimes it's just little fun drawings within that, but each one then has some facts about that animal, about different keystone species, interesting animals you may not have heard of. Yeah. So it's kind of, I should have thought about it more. This is sort of an adult coloring book with maybe facts that, little kids might like. But, I've sold quite a few of these again through different social media and shops. And then that inspired me to make another coloring book. Again, this is, I say mostly hand drawn here because, as I mentioned, I also like photography. So this also features my photos on one side, and then you can color in the photo on the other side. So hopefully you can see this photo is then drawn over here. And so these photos are all taken on my different hiking adventures. And then I thought it'd be fun to have some coloring on the photo as well. Yeah, and so let's see, what else could I show here? That's kind of the main gist of what I had available to me. Oh, here are just some small little paintings, Simra. These are like little tests where, I was just sort of playing around with creating, this was a little lake scene. But, these are more kind of sketching, figuring out, playing with my different techniques. Let's see what else is in here. Well, there's an early one. I mean, this is kind of a blend of painting and I think that was a river. But, that's kind of like not super polished Simra. It's not, I wouldn't call that top of the line drawing and work. And it looks like I didn't even really finish down there. This is more, again, these are prints of the mountain line drawing that I did. But yeah, so here's another kind of early, it's archival ink and watercolor. This is a print again, this isn't the original. I'm not sure where the original is. But yeah, so there's some of my work. People are interested or have any questions about anything. Looks like a few more people joined here, so just getting right in here. These paintings are made up of words telling the history of all these animals. Mostly focused on North America, although pollinators, I do get into some, information around the world, and sea turtles. I do talk about populations of the different species all around the entire world. These are all masterpieces, sir. Thank you. Again, it's you should try to create work on things that you care deeply about or you're super interested in. And then it's, a passion project. And that helps you, stay motivated to do your best work and, hopefully inspire others to do the same. It's tough with the reflection off the windows here, but yeah, just keep practicing. And someday you could, do whatever your version of this is. But yeah, this Badlands drawing, you've probably seen different video clips in some of my videos I have going through all of this. Or drawing all of this is what I mean. I asked my wife yesterday what her favorite one of all these is, and like I mentioned, these all take about a year apiece to research and draw. And her favorite one was this bird chart that took about, 3 days, and that's just because I would only draw a bird or two a day. Oh, and then she really likes this drawing, which, I understand that because the level of detail in this is very high for the scale. This is just really small details to get on all these different rock and mountain formations here. Yeah, and so that's what I brought out for the little show and tell today. If anybody has any questions, I'll sit here for a second. I'll page through this coloring book, see what we got here. This is Yosemite National Park. But yeah, if you check out the posts section on my YouTube channel. Again, that's where I kind of, outside of just drawing tutorials, where I ask questions of what people want to see on here. And that helps me sort of diversify beyond just, again, the drawing tutorials with pencil. If people are interested in learning more about painting, I'm probably not the best teacher for watercolor paint, but like for me, a lot of things, I took, a large variety of art classes in college as part of my major was in television, but I took a lot of art classes. So I'm not probably as good at explaining painting techniques, but I experiment a lot. And that's how I started down this process of creating these, is it was all just an experiment to see. And at first it was more like, am I even able to achieve such a thing? But it might be more of a trial and error as opposed to my drawing videos where I can more exactly say how to achieve the looks I'm going for. But yeah, that's a long way of saying if you want to see more painting, or even if you're interested in seeing more in progress work of projects that I'm working on, maybe I don't explain it step by step, but here's another big drawing that I'm playing around with, that once I finish the Mount Rainier drawing, I would like to show more of. And this is going to be a little bit hard to see. So I got this big sheet of paper here. This is so I took a photo of this big oak tree, but I want to build the oak tree out of all these different animals. And you can somewhat see the outline of the oak tree here. And then all these different animals, it'd be focused on, again, biodiversity and how it all works in unison. So you can see the bison there, we got a snake, and how all these animals are interconnected. And then down here in the photo, it's a bunch of wildflowers, a bunch of black-eyed Susans. So I was just going to keep that as is, but then, yeah, this oak tree, which it's just lightly shaded in, goes all the way up there, would be filled with all these interconnected animals. And I was going to draw, like river through it. So once I get through my Rainier drawing, that's what I'm hoping to really focus on. But I've learned people like to watch my videos to see how to do things, and maybe not as much the projects that I'm working on. But if that's something you're interested in, comment or write it over on that community post page, because I'd love to know. And it's fun to, show people while I'm working on a real project. Well, yeah, that's what I got. Okay, yeah, this is the back of this coloring book. So there's actually a real human drawing it by hand and not on a computer screen. So I think I'll wrap it up then. Unless anybody wants to see something closer up, let me know. Hopefully some of these, inspire you to whatever project you're working on. Hopefully this inspires some people. Find what you're interested in, go for it. Don't be afraid of messing up. Again, on all these, I did little sketches and paintings, so it's not like I just sat down and in one shot was able to create these things. It all takes planning and, in this case, a lot of research. Okay, well, until next time, I'll see you around. Well, let me flip this camera around here. Thanks for checking out my work. Hopefully you liked it, and we'll see you next time.